The federal courthouse was unusually silent when Judge Amy Berman Jackson's gavel fell with unexpected force, echoing through the wood-paneled chamber like a gunshot. "Miss Bondi, you are in contempt of court," the judge declared, her voice steely. "I am ordering U.S. Marshals to take you into custody immediately." Former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi stood at the defense table, her posture unflinching, even as two marshals advanced. Then Bondi's assistant placed a sealed folder before the bench, a single act that would transform a potential jail sentence into a landmark moment for judicial accountability. Judge Jackson, appointed by President Obama in 2016 and renowned for her rigorous enforcement of courtroom decorum, had presided over some of the decade's most high-profile political cases. At 69, her meticulous approach had garnered both praise for fairness and criticism for perceived severity. Across the aisle, Bondi, 58, had built her career as Florida's first female attorney general, tackling everything from healthcare disputes to drug trafficking prosecutions. Since entering private practice, she earned a reputation as a tenacious defender against government overreach, never stepping into court without exhaustive preparation. This hearing arose from allegations that the Department of Justice deliberately withheld exculpatory evidence in a high-stakes political investigation. As Bondi pressed these claims, Judge Jackson twice cautioned her about the seriousness of the accusation. "Miss Bondi," the judge warned, "unless you have concrete proof, I will not tolerate unfounded assertions against the Department of Justice." Bondi calmly countered that internal communications, if permitted onto the record, would substantiate her claims. Tension escalated when the judge ordered the marshals to take Bondi into custody for contempt, prompting her to raise her hands and implore, "Your Honor, please review these documents before making a decision you may regret." Once Judge Jackson opened the folder, her expression shifted from impatience to astonishment. The first pages bore official DOJ watermarks and electronic timestamps. Her eyes widened as she read. Bondi explained that a whistleblower within the department had provided the materials only the previous evening. The lead prosecutor, James Harrington, rose in protest, but the judge signaled him to remain silent while she conducted her own evaluation. For several minutes, the courtroom held its breath. Journalists leaned forward, jurors and spectators exchanged uneasy glances. Judge Jackson scrutinized an email dated 3 months earlier, in which Harrington's team strategized to file Hammond's statement separately and label it internal work product to avoid discovery obligations. The note explicitly recommended withholding testimony that might undercut the prosecution's timeline, a clear violation of Brady requirements for disclosing exculpatory evidence. Harrington coughed, insisting the email addressed mere relevance, not improper suppression, but offered no satisfactory explanation of the instructions. Next, the judge examined a sworn declaration from Thomas Hammond, key witness to the events, previously filed in DOJ records but never disclosed to the defense. The document's metadata revealed it had been in prosecutorial custody for 6 months. Bondi's client, a former government official accused of obstruction, sat motionless, his fate hanging on each turn of the page. It was then that the marshals, uncertain in the face of mounting proof, paused at Bondi's side. After completing her review, Judge Jackson replaced the last sheet and looked to the marshals. "Return to your stations," she ordered. "The contempt order is rescinded." A murmur swept the courtroom. What began as a move to jail Bondi had flipped into damning evidence of prosecutorial misconduct, and the authorities' act lay squarely in the judge's hands. Judge Jackson then called a 30-minute recess, during which she consulted with the chief judge. When court reconvened, the room was packed with additional spectators, journalists, and legal observers. This court's paramount duty is to justice and the rule of law, not to any political agenda or institutional reputation, she began, her tone measured. Turning to Bondi, she offered an apology. Her initial contempt ruling had been hasty and lacked full consideration of the defense's assertions. At the same time, she admonished that serious allegations require advance notice and proper channels to avoid confrontational excess. Next, she addressed Harrington and his team. The judge referred the prosecution to the DOJ Office of Professional Responsibility for Investigation and ordered an independent audit of all cases handled by Harrington's office over the past 5 years. In a rare move, Judge Jackson announced she would self-report her own handling of the contempt proceeding to the Judicial Conduct Committee, reaffirming that accountability applies to every courtroom participant. News outlets immediately seized upon the reversal. Video clips of Judge Jackson's rescission and the case dismissal spread across major networks and social media. Within 24 hours, the Department of Justice announced that James Harrington had been reassigned and a special review team formed to examine the accusations. Bondi's client, exonerated of all charges, filed a civil rights lawsuit against the DOJ, citing the withheld evidence. Legal experts predicted a swift settlement. The case's reverberations extended beyond this single courtroom. Members of Congress cited the affair when drafting legislation to strengthen Brady disclosure requirements and impose stiffer remedies for violations. Law schools incorporated the episode into their ethics curricula, highlighting the importance of defense counsel's diligence and the judiciary's duty to correct its own missteps. In interviews, Bondi reflected on the personal risk she assumed. There are moments in your career when you must choose between personal comfort and professional integrity. Judge Jackson, in her own public remarks, emphasized that human error is inevitable, but integrity is measured by how one responds when errors surface. 6 weeks later, an official review cleared Judge Jackson of any disciplinary violation, praising her transparency and commitment to accountability as exemplars of judicial conduct. 1 year after the courtroom showdown, Bondi and Judge Jackson appeared together on a conference panel titled Adversaries in Court, Allies for Justice. Their joint presence underscored the adversarial system's strength. Vigorous advocacy met with impartial adjudication, united in service of truth. The dramatic reversal, far from diminishing the judiciary, reaffirmed its capacity for self-correction. The Bondi-Jackson hearing stands as a testament to the fragility and resilience of the American justice system. It demonstrated that when evidence prevails, even the most formidable figures can be held to account. It underscored the vital role of defense counsel in safeguarding due process and reminded judges that authority must be exercised with humility and thoroughness. In this case, justice was not only served, it was reaffirmed in all its demanding rigor and corrective power. In the months that followed, the case continued to influence discussions at the highest levels of the judiciary and legislative branches. The DOJ Office of Professional Responsibilities Inquiry uncovered additional instances in which prosecutorial teams had equivocated on disclosure obligations. Although no further charges were brought, the inquiry's final report recommended substantial revisions to internal review protocols and the establishment of an independent oversight office within the Department of Justice. Meanwhile, several state bar associations reviewed their own rules of professional conduct, adopting amendments to require more explicit guidelines for the timing and manner of presenting evidence to the court. At the federal level, the Judicial Conference of the United States convened a special committee on disclosure and fairness, which produced a best practices manual circulated to all district and appellate courts. These measures collectively aimed to prevent a recurrence of the very concealment that nearly derailed the obstruction case. Pam Bondi, now recognized as a catalyst for systemic change, received invitations to speak at legal symposiums nationwide. In each appearance, she underscored the essential balance between zealous advocacy and professional decorum, reminding practitioners that courage must be matched by meticulous preparation. Judge Jackson, too, became a featured speaker on judicial accountability, emphasizing that the hallmark of a robust system is its willingness to correct itself. Their joint appearances symbolized a restoration of mutual respect, even amid adversarial roles. Public sentiment reflected a renewed confidence in the justice system's ability to self-regulate. Opinion polls conducted 6 months post-hearing showed a significant uptick in trust toward federal courts, particularly among demographics previously skeptical of institutional impartiality. Educational institutions incorporated the case into curricula, not only for law students, but also for public administration and journalism programs, recognizing its broader lessons about transparency and the public's right to know. Ultimately, the Bondi-Jackson confrontation transcended its immediate stakes. It became a landmark study in how procedural safeguards and ethical obligations intersect, and how the persistence of a determined defense attorney can illuminate vulnerabilities in even the most established institutions. The reverberations of that single morning in the DC courtroom continue to shape protocols, inform ethics training, and inspire legal professionals to remain ever vigilant in upholding the twin pillars of justice and due process.